Okay, so very good morning to all of you. People online, I hope the voice is audible. Okay, so we're now going to resume, and again, today is the lecture 2 of the environment. In fact, in the very first lecture that we had just discussed the overview of the subject, okay? And we had also seen for ourselves that, for example, what are some of the basic terms, okay? So in 1 minute or 2 minutes, I'll just quickly recap what we had done in lecture number 1, and after that, we move into the other terminologies, other terms that we need to know from there, right? Now, did anybody do the homework that I had given you? What was the homework? अच्छा चलो ठीक है तो चलो. Okay, so now I remember 3 questions now. Okay, so very first question was, where would COP 30 happen? अच्छा, Belem, ठीक है. This will be important for us because in biodiversity I'll also tell you something known as a Belem declaration. Okay, so even that would become something of importance to us. We'll also see why, let's say, is that important. ठीक है. People online also, you can also let me know. ठीक है. Now, second thing is, so I think one question we had asked for ourselves is this: COP 30, the location, right? Second question was related to, I think, Assam, है ना? Assam made 2 questions I had asked you. One was the national parks in Assam, and second one was, so one is national parks, and second is the river Brahmaputra, right? हाँ, okay, big five. तो ये किसने देखा है वैसे? किसने करा हुआ है इसको? अच्छा, you've seen that, ठीक है. So I think number 1, the answer to COP 30 is Belem. A Belem declaration आएगा भी बाद में, which also we'll see that. Fine, so we'll also see what is Belem declaration. Second thing is Assam. How many national parks did we see in Assam? 7. The 2 most recent one was to the westward side you had Raimona, सबसे west है, और to the most eastward, what is that? Dihing, हाँ, Dihing Patkai, ठीक है? So that is one. Then with river Brahmaputra, what do we need to know? Right, तो अब बताओ. We were talking about Kaziranga. Was it to the north or was it to the south? देखा है? जिसने देखा है उसको समझ में आएगा, otherwise हाँ चलो, I think you try to draw this also. So I think that looks like a good attempt, है ना? हाँ, and Orang is to the, so for example, when you see this properly, so let's say this is Kaziranga. Why did we talk about Kaziranga? In the context of one-horned rhinos. And actually, I wanted to tell you the definition of 2 things. Number 1 was this autoecology and synecology. Okay, what was autoecology? Only so study of only one species would lead to autoecology. What was synecology? Study of multiple species, right? So that was one. Now, so that one is Kaziranga, and one, of course, was this Orang, and very close you have Nameri. So abhi slowly and steadily as we do your topics, अब क्या होगा, many times, let's say in the coming days, you'll also see some news articles on Assam. तो अब आसाम आपके लिए आसान हो जाएगा, है ना? So this is how you'll get to understand. Another thing that we had, I wanted you to see was the big 5. What are the big 5? One is one horn rhino. फिर एशियाटिक मिलेगा ही नहीं. एलिफेंट, ओके. हाँ. हाँ. नहीं, दैट इज नॉट बारहसिंगा. हाँ. अब देखो, this is a difference which again I'll tell you in species. There is one thing is swamp deer, one thing is eastern swamp deer. ठीक है? Eastern swamp deer is what you find in Assam. That is why I started giving you the example of Assam. ठीक है? So in big 5, one of that is eastern swamp deer. Eastern swamp deer. ठीक है? Swamp deer is your Barasinga, and swamp deer is the state animal of UP as well, and even Madhya Pradesh. But eastern swamp deer is what you will find in Kaziranga. Okay? So slowly and steadily, again, my way of teaching you this is going to tell you that we will be seeing species throughout. Okay? Slowly and steadily, you will get a hang of some of the important species. What was the third homework? Acha, vulture decline. Okay. Did anybody try to read about it? Hello, this we will be covering today also. This will also be very easy. In fact, I had mentioned a niche that was getting disrupted and why the vulture decline was happening. Okay? So I just wanted to ask all of you so that we are on the right part. And I think people online also will be, you will be, now connected. So slowly and steadily, please follow the basic, I think, examples we are seeing, the homework I'm asking you to do. Okay? So today we'll be again beginning with the lecture number 2. Okay? Thank you, people online. Now I think all of us, and have the people online done these homework or not? Okay, so not enough comments. Okay. Other thing was we have seen what is environment, right? What is ecology? This also we have seen, yes or no? Other than that, any other terms that we had seen? We've seen ecosystem. We have seen ecological hierarchy. Okay. We started with an individual, then we moved to a population, then we move to community, then we move to ecosystem, then biome, and then biosphere. These are all the main parts we have seen. Okay. Now, the last three are very important always. One is ecosystem, then you have biome, and then you have biosphere. Okay. So, three things that are there. In fact, we've already seen how to understand that. So, specifically for these three terms, so one is, for example, we had already seen in the last class, how do we define ecosystem? Structural and functional part of biosphere. Okay? Now, what is the structural part? What is the meaning of structural part? No, not necessarily. Simply, organization. There's a structure that is being followed. Okay, which means the pattern of organization of the organization, the organisms which are there. In an aquatic system, they have a certain kind of organization. In a pond, may be different. In a tropical rainforest, it can be different. Okay. Whereas, what is the functions? We have seen 4 functions of an ecosystem. What are they? And exactly this is how this is mentioned in your NCRT. What are the 4 functions? Nutrient cycling, second. Homeostasis, good. Take. Ecological succession, and one thing you're forgetting, energy flow. Okay? These 4 things I will repeat to you at least in the upcoming 4 or 5 classes many a times. Okay? That you have nutrient flow, okay, which means nutrient cycling, energy flow, next is ecological succession, and one is homeostasis. What is homeostasis? The ability to regulate the temperature. And as we will go in fact, the moment I say homeostasis, I'm saying it is the ability to regulate the temperature. And there will be certain species who will not be able to regulate. In fact, most of the species cannot regulate the temperature. Okay? Which also then connects to us the very important point of climate change. We are seeing global warming, we are seeing climate change, and we are seeing how the temperatures around the world are fluctuating. Of course, there is an increase of temperatures. If the species are not able to regulate their body temperature, and especially in the context of rising temperatures, would that be a problem? That will be a problem, right? So this is also why climate change becomes such a big concern overall. Okay? That is one. Now let us continue with some other components. Okay, so I think this also examples and points we had seen. What is a biosphere? Right? Okay. Abhi, in the coming classes, I'll tell you also what is a cryosphere, etc., etc. Right? Now, just see this heading. I think all the 4 terms we have seen, but just want to emphasize these terms to you. So there are few terms. Number 1 is, for example, ecology. You have environment, you have habitat, you have ecosystem. Now, are we clear about all these terms? What is ecology? If you are, it is the study of interaction of organisms. Main thing है study है of interaction of organisms and their surroundings, or organisms and their environment. Even I can say that. Okay. What is environment? It is always better to remember this through some keywords. Only one keyword you remember. Anything that surrounds us. Now, the scope of the surrounding can be small, it can be big. It can be even a small room, it can be a big hall, it can be an open field, etc., etc. So when I say environment, it can also be broader in context. Fine. Then you have a habitat. Now again, try to recall the difference between habitat and a niche. क्या पढ़ा था हमने बताओ? Basic, huh? So it was simply the address. And what was the niche? The profession, the unique, yes. We will remember the keyword, the unique functional role. I also told you that 17 species have same niche. Yes or no? 17 or 15? बताओ. 17 species have the same niche. बताओ. अभी some people have to get out of their good morning. मैं wish कर रहा हूँ आपको. What is the issue in my statement? I'm saying only 17 species can have the same niche. So this is absolutely wrong. 17 आप सोचो 17 है, 14 है, 15 है ही नहीं. No two species can have the same niche. Okay? Which is why the moment I say agar, chalo, if I should say to you, you are very unique. What that means? आपके जैसा कोई नहीं. Yes, that is what is unique. But then other time I say नहीं, आप सारे लोग same हो. Isn't that a contradiction? So that is why if I had said that 17 species have the same niche, the moment you say it, this statement has to be discarded. It is wrong. The statement should have been no two species have the same identical niche. Right? And why is that? Why don't two species have the same niche? This will cause conflict and competition. Right? They would have to fight. So which is why nature, in the nature, they have evolved themselves in this manner, so that of course the things can be properly outlined. Right? So this is what we'll say. So habitat समझ के हम लोग, what is habitat? Overall, the physical space or the address, the unique functional role is defined by the niche. For now, your keywords will be your savior, unique functional role. So which is why even in prelims, if there's an MCQ, you are just supposed to look for these words. बहुत बार definition पूछते हैं आपसे, आपको वो words देखने होंगे, ठीक है? Is the word there? Your job is done. Fine. Similarly, when I say biome, which word would you be looking for? Climate. Okay. And based on climate, the species will also differ, right? So when I say species differ, आप सोचो, if it's a very cold climate, okay, won't you see bears? You will see seals. Arctic areas में हमने कभी cartoons देखे हो, documentaries, etc. So you have different kind of species in cold climate, है ना? They may have furs, and they have furs simply so that to keep themselves warm. But if you see the animals in the deserts, they're very different. Animals in the plains, they're very different. So animals also adapt as per the climate. Okay, that is also important. Again, please फिर से बोलो, what is ecosystem? Structural and functional part of a biosphere. This is one way to define it. Another simple way, अगर फिर से बोला जाए कि ecosystem also tells us the interactions of organisms and their surroundings. Would that be correct or would that be incorrect? That is also correct. Because ultimately in an ecosystem, in the example that also the diagram that you saw, you also have interaction. So which is why similar definition you can also find for a couple of these terms. This is ultimately the interaction of organism and their, let's say, surroundings. But the technical definition will be it is the structural and the functional part of a biosphere. Okay, fine. अब ecosystem को ही थोड़ा सा let's dissect the ecosystem and we'll see some things related to ecosystem and some other terminologies. And then we go to another part here. Okay, let's say just look, maybe we'll spend 1 minute on this image and what do we get to understand from here. Okay, this is, let's say, basic ecosystem. You have also a small pond or kind of a lake. Okay, and you see some terms, you see a sunlight and heat. What is sunlight important for? Photosynthesis. Okay, so through photosynthesis, autotrophs means the one who can make their own food, they will make the food, right? And that will lead to at least the plants, etc., growing. The plants then can be eaten up, yes or no, by some other, let's say, animals, etc. Now in this, I would want to bring your attention to some keywords. Can you see a term bacteria? ठीक है. Algae दिखा आपको? Okay. Can you see plankton? Okay. So here there are few terms, and slowly and steadily we'll try to build our base around it. Fungus, can you see fungus? You can see mushrooms. A rotting log. Log is simply a piece of wood. Okay. Termite mounds. What is a termite? चलो हाँ, so let's say this is wood. Okay, आपने सुना होगा दीमक. Okay, in Hindi. So termite is simply these small kind of insects, or in that sense these are red ants. Okay, which predominantly eat wood. Okay. Abhi just we are seeing some terms here, and we'll also see what is so special about some of these terms. Okay. So basically, this is a simple ecosystem. Of course, this could have been different in a tropical area. It would have been different, right? But there are some words that are mentioned which can be important for us to understand. ठीक है? सबसे पहला, of course, please remember, whenever you see sun and sunlight, we are talking about autotrophs. One example of autotrophs I've already given you is plants. ठीक है? Plants in terrestrial, which means the land-based ecosystems, are the ones which are autotrophs. ठीक है? Second example, in water bodies, you have planktons, and more specifically, you have phytoplanktons. This also we've done in the first class. Okay, people online also, we've seen this in the first one. Okay, now phytoplanktons, देखो planktons आगे भी we'll see in aquatic ecosystems in more detail. They will be of two types, phytoplanktons and zooplanktons. Right now for us, phytoplanktons are very important. जहां मैंने autotroph लिखा है, तो autotroph का example होगा हमारा plants. So one example is this, and one example is phytoplanktons. Okay, zooplanktons, they will eat the phytoplanktons. इनके भी बहुत examples हैं. Slowly and steadily as I move along in the classes, I'll tell you the examples. So in this, please don't assume कि autotrophs zooplanktons है. नहीं. Autotrophs का मतलब क्या होता है? Those who can make their own food. On land, it is the plant that can make their own food. In water bodies, you will have phytoplanktons, but phytoplanktons are a type of planktons. Planktons can be phytoplanktons who make their own food, and these animals known as zooplanktons who eat up the phytoplanktons. ऐसी तो chain चलती है, yes or no? So phytoplanktons is what you will remember, and if you want just one example for now, you can write is cyanobacteria. Okay, when I do aquatic ecosystems, I will keep on adding. For both of them, I'll tell you at least 4 to 5 examples as I move along. Okay? But there's no point, Abhi, we've just started to give you even bulky or let's say tougher terms. So slowly and steadily, this will become very organic and you'll remember. But the point is, we have just seen an image. Sometimes infographics are very important for us to know. So one of the things is phytoplanktons. What is the first thing we have known? Phytoplanktons are autotrophs. एक और चीज है, both phytoplanktons, zooplanktons, etc. These are very small. These are microscopic organisms, very small. So in water or in they will be thousands and lakhs of phytoplanktons, huge numbers, because these are very small. Okay, so to produce the kind of energy that is needed, you would have a lot of them and you would need a lot of them. Okay, so even that is something that is important to understand. Okay, so that is one. So you have autotrophs में plants हैं, ठीक है? These are on land. Within planktons, you have phytoplanktons which make the food, which are eaten up then by zooplanktons. Till here, are we clear? एक बहुत basics idea. Okay. Then we'll also see as we move along fungus, what role do they play? अभी के लिए याद रखो, जैसे you see fungus also. Okay. You see bacteria. Now they can also be, I'm saying also, they can also be decomposers. We saw in nature you find autotrophs, heterotrophs, and decomposers. Okay, so you can also write the best examples of two best examples of decomposers. Certain bacterias. Okay, or we can write even the examples of fungus, etc. Molds. These are very good examples of decomposers. और यहां पे ब्रैकेट करके जरूर लिख लेना, not Virus is not. Okay. The reason is virus actually requires a host. So while virus can be a parasite, but virus cannot be a decomposer. These two would be the best examples of decomposers. Okay. So whenever an organism, for example, has died, okay, let's say there's a plant which has died or decayed, or let's say an animal is there, it will be acted upon by decomposers, okay, who will break it further down, okay. Isme bhi there's a proper process that is there. So when I do decomposers and their whole activity with you, I will also do this in slightly more detail. Abhi ke liye, in the very first lecture, I told you three things. One was autotrophs, one was heterotrophs, one was decomposer. Autotroph में land में example क्या है? जैसे simple example है plants. In water bodies, etc., you can have phytoplanktons. You will have heterotrophs. Some heterotrophs be, for example, very simple examples we had seen. Anybody who is going to eat up autotrophs. Okay, it can be as simple as a rabbit, a deer, even lion, etc., which we can give examples as. And lastly, you would also have the decomposers. What are the examples of decomposers? Okay, the bacteria and the fungus, but not a virus. So, abhi ke liye, this is the basic thing. Now, in this, I also see something known as a termite. ठीक है? Termite को अपने margins में लिखना. Okay, that termites are producers of methane, CH4. Okay, these are the natural producers of methane. And when I say methane, one of the biggest source of methane is paddy. Paddy means rice. Rice cultivation is going to be man-made activity, but there are some organisms which will naturally emit methane. One of them is your termites. Okay. Now the question again for you is the very first question I want to know. Many of you were saying dimak. Okay, you were seeing wood, the logs of wood, right? I want to ask from you that how are termites able to eat and digest wood? ये question है अपना. So my question is, what is that? Why can't we eat wood? हम क्यों नहीं खा पाते? ठीक है, तो वो enzyme कौन सी है? What makes them special, etc., etc. So just reread this once. Okay, very simple question, बहुत simple question है. And you just simply compare humans with these termites. Okay, of course, I'm not saying we are equal. Okay, but I'm saying how are our digestive process different? This will also help you understand why they release methane. Actually, I wanted to ask you why they release methane. But to understand that, first you have to understand their digestive system. And then after, if you understand that, then ये सवाल बहुत आसान हो जाएगा. वो मीथेन रिलीज क्यों करते हैं? So from the very first lecture, our endeavor is to ensure you think. ऐसा नहीं कि मैंने बोल दिया they emit methane and you will just remember they emit methane. ठीक है? As we move ahead, when we do the methane cycle, we'll also see why is it that paddy cultivation releases methane? Why not some other cultivation? Yes or no? So these kind of simple questions are also what UPSC is going to test you either in prelims or in mains. For example, there's a very famous question that came in history. For example, everybody reads about the different battles of Panipat. The question in mains was that why were the battles fought in Panipat, for example, right? So that is a question that makes you think, ye ho kyun raha hai? So whatever things you are doing, always do it with very curious and a inquisitive, okay, bent of mind, right? Everybody, let's say, aaj we're talking about Teachers' Day. The best teacher kaun hai? That, let's say, for you also, because students for me are the best teachers because your questions help me understand the subject even better. Yes or no? And whenever you read a topic, and this is also something I want you to take this advice today, when you read it like a small child would. हर एक चीज पे क्वेश्चन करना है ना. So when you understand environment, okay, and this will again deepen your understanding to the very next level. That every small thing, where even what I am saying, अगर ये हो रहा है, you are more than welcome to ask, अच्छा ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है, right? Sometimes you may not know, हो सकता है वैसे ही मिलता कोई conceptual question आ जाए आपके लिए, ठीक है? That is how we will talk about some of these elements. Some of the terms that I've mentioned here, we've just tried to cover, ठीक है? Now, I can also classify an ecosystem. Okay, the ecosystems classification also we'll have a look at. How can the ecosystem be classified? Okay, and what are some of the things, let's say, associated with an ecosystem? Okay, now, first please remember, the classification can be in a simple manner. This can also be natural. This can be man-made. And it can be on land, which means it can be terrestrial, and it can also be in water. It can be aquatic. On land, of course, we can also talk about. Some of the very prominent examples are these. There's a man-made with, of course, agriculture fields, things that we're talking about. Similarly, salt pans, etc. All these will be examples of ecosystem. Why am I telling you like this is again a top very concept that is going to be related to this. A concept of ecotone. Okay, when there are two ecosystems which are going to almost overlap. अभी के लिए बहुत simple terms से what did we see? For example, you have land, okay, terrestrial part or the aquatic part. You can have forest, you can have grasslands, you can have deserts. These are also simple ecosystems I can talk about. एक और चीज याद रखना जब हम ecosystems की बात कर रहे हैं, ecosystem can be as small as a tree. Even a single tree can be an ecosystem. How? Within a tree, you will have thousands of birds that are going to come in. The tree very simply has a lot of parasites very close by. Okay, so a tree is visited by, and if you have birds, let's say some of the droppings that fall, so a lot of organisms are going to visit it. ठीक है? So even a tree can be an ecosystem. That is one thing. आगे हम लिखेंगे भी इसको. अभी के लिए ये बहुत सिंपल सी चीज समझ में आ रही है हमें. Main thing to understand here is ecosystem can be both natural and an ecosystem can also be man-made. Both things are true. Fine. Now, very interestingly, we'll also see there will be some ecosystems which will also be almost merging. जैसे मान के चलो, there's a grassland. The moment the grassland is ending, there's a water body. So there is an overlap section. So there will also be certain ecosystems which will be found on the overlap. So have you just drawn this? Okay, because just after this, I'll introduce you to a very interesting concept, and after that, I'll come back to ecosystem services. Is this now is the concept is ecotone. Okay, now in ecotone, we have just seen land ecosystems. We saw aquatic ecosystems. What does ecotone, the concept of ecotone, tell us? That there are ecotones which are transitional systems, which are found in the overlap of two systems. So let's say there is a land ecosystem, there is a aquatic ecosystems. Ecotone tells me it is a zone of transition. Now, there are some keywords that are used to define what is an ecotone. So simply, it is also known as a zone of tension, or it is also known as a zone of transition. Why is that? Because it is the zone of overlap of two ecosystems. That is why the knowledge of ecosystem was needed. The classification of ecosystem was needed. So it is, achha, this should be overlap, not overall. This is overlap of two ecosystems. The very simple ecosystem is, let's say ecosystem 1, you have ecosystem 2. जहां पे ये overlap कर रहे हैं, इस region को we say as ecotone. Now your question is, sir, ठीक है, but what is so special about it? Fine. So just see this. Let's say in ecosystem 1, you have, let's say 5 or 6 types of species that are found. Different types of species are found in aquatic ecosystems. दोनों में अलग-अलग species हैं. But in the intersection, don't you think there will also be mating and breeding of these species? plus some other species can also come. So what is unique about an ecotone is an ecotone always has high biodiversity. In fact, it has more biodiversity than the other two ecosystems. That is why it is also known as a zone of tension or a zone of transition. Ecotone is signified by high biodiversity, and sometimes even the species that are not found in either ecosystem can also be found in an ecotone. Right? So ecotone in one line, what is ecotone? It is a zone of tension overlap. What happens when the overlapping of two ecosystems happen? तो इसको अगर आप बनाओगे भी इसी तरह से बनाओगे. You have ecosystem 1, you have ecosystem 2. In the overlap zone, what you have? This is known as an ecotone. Second is an ecotone has higher biodiversity. Okay, that is again a point to remember here. Ecotone has high biodiversity. Now, you would also be wondering, sir, I need examples of ecotone. मुझे आप examples बताओ, है ना? तो अब इसमें हम देखते हैं, and last में we will write some of these important points. One example is mangroves. Okay, mangroves, are they related to mangoes? नहीं है, फिर ठीक है. So what are one example of mangroves we saw just in the first class? What was that? Sundarbans. So Sundarbans was present in Kerala या कर्नाटका? बताओ. कहीं भी नहीं. ठीक. कहाँ पे? आप बताओ. वेस्ट बंगाल. ठीक है. And why are Sundarbans very important? Yeah, for it in which context? क्या स्पेशल था सुंदरबंस के बारे में? अपार्ट फ्रॉम रॉयल बंगाल टाइगर, वर्ल्ड्स लार्जेस्ट कॉन्सेंट्रेशन ऑफ मैंग्रोव्स. ठीक है, वर्ल्ड्स लार्जेस्ट. ठीक है, दैट इज वन. सुंदरबंस में व्हाट इज सुंदर अबाउट इट? दिस इज ऑल्सो में. हाँ, गुड. द आंसर इज सुंदरी ट्री. अब आपका होमवर्क है, व्हाट इज द साइंटिफिक नेम ऑफ सुंदरी ट्री? आई कैन टेल यू हियर ओनली, बट द पॉइंट इज फिर मजा नहीं आएगा. एंड दिस नेम, चलो एक और आपको मैं होमवर्क दे रहा हूं, अगर आप कर पाओ तो बहुत अच्छा है. द इंडियन स्टेट ऑफ फॉरेस्ट रिपोर्ट ISFR 2023 में इस ट्री का प्रॉपर एक पेज पे मतलब पूरा देयर इज एंटायर पेज इन दैट रिपोर्ट dedicated to this tree and its name is also mentioned. The Indian State of Forest Report 2023. So your homework is twofold. Number one, what is the scientific name of Sundari tree? And second is who publishes the Indian State of Forest Report? This report gets published every 2 years. ठीक है, तो एक है कौन पब्लिश करता है. जब आप इस रिपोर्ट को देखोगे, इन दिस रिपोर्ट देयर आर मेनी चैप्टर्स. वन चैप्टर इज डेडिकेटेड टू मैंग्रोव्स. So when I do that in my class, I'll of course go in more detail, but I just want you to see this. We're saying Sundarbans, Sundarbans. So your friend has pointed out, sir, it is named on Sundari tree. So Sundari tree है क्या? क्या इसका नाम है? वो हम देखेंगे. And then who publishes the report? ठीक है? People online, यहाँ तक follow कर रहे हो? ठीक है, चलो. So one example is of course mangroves. One is river bank, your grassland. Okay. एक और example add करो. I'll tell you what this means. Estuaries. Estuaries. ठीक है, estuaries. Now let's see again one by one. So ecotone is an area. It's a transition or a boundary between two ecosystems. It is a zone of tension. Now this exact line you will write. It is a habitat of greater genetic diversity. It's a bridge for gene flow because from one ecosystem, let's say this is ecosystem 1, to the ecosystem 2, there is going to be the gene flow. This is your zone of tension. So it serves as a bridge for gene flow from one population to the other. ठीक है? Mayank, your name is partially right. One part of it is wrong, but you need to know the full name. So these are habitats of greater genetic diversity and serves as bridges of gene flow, number one, right? Now examples, one is mangroves, one is river bank, grasslands, estuaries. I can also give example of wetland. Okay. Now, wetland also you can write wetland, mangroves. These are specific topics that we read. Okay. Please in your margins also write. We'll also see this. Wetlands are governed under Ramsar Convention, and Ramsar is actually a place in Iran. And just write down one is just because I've said wetland. First of all, you will now remember wetland is a ecotone. Second, wetlands are governed under Ramsar Convention. Third fact you will write down, India has 91 Ramsar sites. All these things in more detail, we'll do it in the appropriate chapter. But this is just an additional piece of information. The terms that we are seeing right now, slowly and steadily we'll be building on it. So the relevant current affairs, the other related things, we will be building on. ठीक है? Ramsar is a place in Iran. ठीक? अब आपको ये पता है wetland is what? Wetland is a ecotone. ठीक है? Now, and this is how your points will organically linked. Mangroves क्या है हमारे? These are also ecotone. These are rich in genetic diversity. In fact, when we see mangroves, when we see wetlands, these are also visited by a lot of birds. There is huge diversity of genetic diversity, which is why all these areas are also very good tourist spots also. India has huge number of wetlands. Some of them are Ramsar sites. Okay, that is being visited. So river bank है, grassland है, etc. These are transition zones. अब ये तो टर्म नहीं सुना होगा आपने एस्चुरीज. ठीक है. नाउ एस्चुरीज को अंडरस्टैंड करने के लिए जस्ट ब्रैकेट में लिखना. ओके. जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल यू हैव अ मूवी लाइक व्हेन हैरी मेट सेजल. ओके. व्हाट यू विल राइट व्हेन रिवर मीट्स सी. River meets sea. What is the difference between a river and a sea in terms of the composition of water? Which will have salty water, which will have fresh water? Hmm? And by sea, of course, river meets ocean कह सकते हो. Okay? बताओ. Oceans have, yeah, seas have salty water, right? And this will have fresh water. Now, the most interesting part here is whenever you will have salt water intersecting with, let's say, this is fresh water, this is salty water, their intersection will produce one of the most productive zones of the world, which is why around estuaries you have one of the best fishing zones. And because there are good fishing zones, you also have a lot of population around estuaries. Again, go back to your history. History में आपने एक और चीज पढ़ी होगी, दोआब. पढ़ा है? दोआब is again यहाँ पे these were fertile plains because of the rivers which was around them. Don't you also know that around the Doab there was a huge settlement and population, right? So people could have used the fertile plains for irrigation, and they will also get proper water from the rivers. Yes or no? Same thing I can say here, that estuaries, because they have the intersection of salt water and fresh water, these are very good productive fishing zones, and around them huge populations also settle. Okay, these are important ecotones of the world. Now, the problem is that all these ecotones are facing what? Challenges, right? Challenges in terms of, ab bhai jahan bhi pani hai, pani, what is getting polluted? First issue. Second, wherever you have land, yeah, mangroves are getting cut down. There is a destruction, there is encroachment of habitat. What is that leading to? First direct issue is the genetic diversity will be impacted. आगे हम पढ़ेंगे food chain. Right, everything in environment is connected, so don't think that if some species are getting lost हमें कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. At the end of the day, everything is getting connected, right? How we get our food, how we interact with the species, etc. So the point is, all the points that you're seeing, चाहे वो mangroves हो, even wetlands, because pollution is there everywhere, climate change is happening, estuaries are facing more and more what? There are you're talking of water. The water can have pollution, water can have oil spills. वो भी challenge होगा कि नहीं यहाँ पे? It will lead to death of the fish. So one thing, contemporary issue is that all these ecotones are facing a challenge. Number one. Now, there are two more terms associated with this. तो एक बार let's say if I go back 1 second, हाँ. So what we have seen, first we have seen what is an ecotone. So wherein you have two specific ecosystems. This is the zone of tension, right? This is known as your ecotone. Now, this area is rich biodiversity or low? High biodiversity? The fact that it has high biodiversity, it is also signified by another term that these areas demonstrate edge effect. Edge effect means simply these areas are rich in biodiversity. And specifically, the species found in these areas are then also termed as, because the term is edge effect, they are also then known as edge species. Simply the species which are found in the ecotone areas. तो हमने तीन terms देखे हैं अभी in just a short span. One is ecotone, one is edge effect, and one is edge species. ठीक है, ecotone, edge effect, and edge species. Now, in edge species, what we need to know? Simply the species that are found in these areas where you see the edge effect being demonstrated. Edge effect कोई बहुत fancy term नहीं है. Edge effect simply tells you, of course, we know ecotones have high biodiversity, higher genetic flow, right? It is simply demonstrating this edge effect. And with the species which are visiting here, which are found here in this area, are nothing but your edge species. So the moment now you see the term ecotone, these two terms also should be very clear in your mind. You will have these areas demonstrate edge effect, and you also have edge species. Okay. So if I go back, this is what is written also. Edge effect is the higher density of organisms and variety which can be found in an ecotone. Simply high biodiversity. Okay. And last में edge species, these are the species which primarily and most abundantly, okay, are found in the area. तो तीन terms हमने देखे. One हमने देखा, one thing is we have seen is ecotone, one is edge effect, and one is edge species. Yes or no? All right. Now, if this is clear, we can move on to the next one. Are we clear till here? So अब देखो फिर से let's recap. What is an ecosystem? Structural and functional part of right. It can have biotic components. It can have abiotic components. We also saw the classification of an ecosystem. How will we classify it? Will it have man-made component? It can have. Can it also have? Right. ठीक है. चलो एक क्वेश्चन पूछ रहा हूँ. How many of you have seen aquarium? ठीक. Aquarium is natural or man-made? Man-made होगा. ठीक है. So in that man-made you can also add one more example. Aquarium. Dams. Okay. Man-made. Okay. Now, so one is the classification of ecosystem. And if you understand classification of ecosystems, you also know now ecotone. Ecotone you best understand when you understand classification of ecosystems. In many books, in the very starting, they give you, but then you get confused. क्योंकि यहाँ पे now we already know what are different ecosystems. If I know what are different ecosystems, can I not tell that the intersection of ecosystems leads to what is an ecotone? And these are areas of high biodiversity. बस इतना याद रखो, high biodiversity, every other point will follow. And also remember the examples. Fine. So we saw mangroves. Abhi tak mangroves, what did we see? One example of mangroves? Sundarbans. Okay. And I've given you example to follow that up with. Anybody who is from an area where you have some famous mangroves? कोई और ऐसा है यहाँ पे? वैसे इंडिया में in other areas also you find mangroves, right? But the most prominent one of course is Sundarbans. ठीक है? Okay. चलो anybody, चलो आप लोग कुछ कौन कौन से एरिया से हो? Let me just try to think if you remember any Ramsar site from your area. तो आप कहाँ से हो? यू आर फ्रॉम ओडिशा? अच्छा नहीं, तो फिर मैं स्टेट स्पेसिफिक, अदरवाइज तो चिलिका लेक इज फाइट। चिलिका लेक पता है वो, वेयर इज चिलिका लेक? चिलिका लेक इज ओडिशा, ओके, विच इज ऑल्सो अ रामसार साइट, ठीक है, चलो फाइन। So this also, the Ramsar wala part, we'll also do it. And there are many examples I have to tell you around India. I'll also share you with you some infographics later on. तो वो हम तब देखेंगे। यहाँ तक क्लियर है? तो ecotone also is what we understand. एक और सेम चीज है यहाँ पे देखो। And you can draw this just to understand number of species. एक ecotone है, take, sorry, this is an ecotone, this is one ecosystem, this is ecosystem number 2. ecosystem number 1 में कुछ स्पीशीज होंगी, यहाँ 2 होगी। इस स्लाइड की सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट चीज ये है, दिस, let's say this is your graph and these are number of species. Main thing to understand is, अगर मैं ये उल्टा कर दूं तो गलत है। Main thing is transition zone में number of species are more. This is the most important part. And this is nothing but what we have been discussing so far. Yes or no? So this is going to be very important. That transition zone will have more high biodiversity of species. That is very important in an ecotone. The biodiversity and species overlap is higher in an ecotone. This is the takeaway for us. तो ecotone में ये काफी ज्यादा रहेगा हमारे लिए। Is that clear? ठीक है, okay. That is what I think we can draw here. Okay. Now, one second. या तो फिर vulture वाला एग्जांपल मैं आपको अभी बता देता हूँ। And after that, I'll also give you one more example. Okay. So we've seen this ecotone. In the first lecture, we had seen a term known as niche. Niche was what? A unique functional role. Right. Now, let's directly do a case study here. And I'm talking about vultures, and we're saying vultures niche is getting disrupted. Now, just hear me out for some moment and you'll understand what is happening here. Vultures are also very important for the ecosystem. Okay, vultures for us are the scavengers, not avengers, scavengers, right? Now, जो vultures हैं, पहली बात, you would have seen they will feed on the dead bodies, the carcass. Okay, एक term उसको जो use करते हैं, that is carcass. They'll feed on it. So in that sense, they will clean up. Okay, and that also because see, nature में something is created, used, everything has to come full circle. So that is a very important role the vultures play. Vultures help in cleaning up activity. If they don't do that, what will happen? New infections will start to come. Okay, now the context of the case study here is we are talking of India. And in India, something alarming was seen from 1990s onwards. 1990 से क्या start होना शुरू हुआ? That slowly and steadily the population of vultures started to decline. And it became so alarming to the extent that we almost lost 90% of vultures. Can you imagine? 90% of vultures were getting lost. So when this was investigated and found, we got to know, for example, you have cattle. Okay? Cattle was being fed a drug. We'll also see which drug was this. Okay, and this was a painkiller. Okay, one of the most prominent one was diclofenac. Diclofenac, etc. These are known as NSAID, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. Okay, this is a pain reliever. If you go to any of the medicine shops, जो भी आप देखते हो ना, move के spray, all these sprays, they will also have Diclofenac. Okay. Now the problem with diclofenac is that it harms your kidney. Okay, which is even why when painkillers are given, a normal doctor would always ask you to have them in most, let's say, rare cases. And generally, somebody who has their kidney failed, then only they are given high doses of diclofenac. Otherwise, somebody which has a good functioning kidney, उनको बहुत problem होगी इससे. अब हुआ क्या? The cattle were fed this drug to remove the pain or to deal with the pain. When the cattle died, okay, the diclofenac remained in their body, and when the vultures used to eat them, diclofenac came in their body also. Fine. Now, what happened because of this? The kidney of vultures started to get damaged, and many a times, even during the flight, their neck used to droop and they used to fall down and die. Right? This was happening because of overuse of antibiotics on cattle, overuse of painkillers on cattle. So here, diclofenac is one of the very prominent painkiller, but it ended up reducing the population of vulture by a huge amount. अब problem क्या होगी? The carcass or these dead bodies will start to accumulate. Yes or no? Now, when the vultures eat the dead bodies, vultures की body में mechanism है, okay, that they are able to digest all of them, okay, because the pH of the body is tuned in that manner that even very acidic conditions, in very tough conditions, they're able to, let's say, digest everything and move along. But the moment there were more dead bodies, the dogs started to eat these dead bodies, and these dogs started, they could not digest it properly. First issue. Second, because of that, new infections. So now when the dogs used to bite somebody, okay, हम बात कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे, there are two types of dog. One are feral dogs, okay, and one is domesticated dogs. So feral dogs, because they were not able to digest it very properly, because उनकी body में वो सारे enzymes नहीं है. The pH is not adjusted or exactly like a vulture. So the moment these dogs used to bite more and more, rabies start to happen, especially because of this. So problem क्या हुई? First is there is a huge decline of vultures. Second is more dog bites, and more dog bites leading to further infections start. This also tells you every species in an ecosystem serves a very important role. आपने एक species का niche खराब किया, उसका functional role खराब किया, कैसे? Over use of antibiotics या painkillers on cattle, entire ecosystem was getting disrupted. So which is why when more and more, let's say, idea awareness came, so conservation for vulture then became a priority. So vulture conservation, vulture ki niche getting restored started to happen. Right? In doing so, the country also has a the vulture conservation breeding plan, etc. Okay, vulture conservation breeding centers also. There's a concept of even of vulture restaurant. Okay, अच्छा vulture restaurant does not mean that यहाँ पे vulture serve होती हैं. It simply means vulture restaurant is an area which is demarcated where vultures can come and easily eat. So these were also getting made. क्यों कर रहे हैं हम? So that the population of vultures can get increased. That was the idea. And we had already lost so many vultures. Right? So अभी तक सबसे बड़ा क्या issue आया हमारा? Diclofenac. Okay? So when I'll be doing species part with you, I'll also tell you other examples of NSAIDs, and I'll also tell you how this can be countered and what are the other steps the government is taking. This is a very good case study to understand. If a niche of a species getting impacted, there will be multiple consequences. Yes or no? Vulture conservation breeding centers. This is सबसे पहले खुला था in Pinjore, Haryana. This was the first one that was created. Okay. Now, out of this, I think I'll just make you write a couple of important lines so that you don't miss out somebody who, let's say, who's not written yet. Okay. अब देखते हैं, ठीक है? In case if you've not written any of these points, you can write it. So you can write the very first point is, the heading is India's your vulture niche disruption in India. Okay. Out of this, some points we'll write so that you are also following with me in the same regard. The vulture niche let's say restoration. Sorry, we niche destruction and of course later on restoration. So right, fair. सबसे पहले point. Vultures play the important role of scavengers. Vultures play the important role of scavengers and help in nutrient cycling. Vultures play an important role of scavengers and help in nutrient cycling. Okay. Full stop. They feed on the dead body slash carcass and help in cleaning up and help in cleaning up. Okay. Right. 1990s onwards. 1990s onwards. India saw a drastic reduction. India saw a drastic reduction in the vulture population. Drastic reduction in the vulture population. Full stop. Because this happened due to the intake of diclofenac. This happened due to the intake of DICLO, diclofenac, FENAC. The intake of diclofenac bracket में NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. एक सवाल ऐसा भी हो सकता है, which of the following is NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug? One of the best example is diclofenac. So this happened due to the intake of diclofenac, which was fed to the cattle, as a painkiller. This was fed to the cattle as a painkiller. Okay, first off, देखो last एक और point. After eating the carcass of the cattle, the kidneys of vulture failed. The kidneys of the vultures failed and they died. Okay. And one more point we'll write. Now the carcass, was being eaten up by eaten up by the feral dogs, and there was a rise of rabies and other infections. There was a rise of rabies and other infections. इसकी reason मैं आपको बता चुका हूँ क्यों rise हुआ, because when the vultures used to eat them, they had proper mechanisms in their body, everything was getting digested. The dogs have not evolved to this. They were very new to eating, right? So what happened? New infections started to spread because of this. Of in dogs की population control करने के लिए भी कुछ नहीं था अपने पास. So these populations would increase. That is why the focus was on, again, conservation of vultures. So now you also know if a niche gets disrupted, will there be many other issues that will start and come up? Okay, this also happens. So this is one point that you can write. Okay. So abhi ke liye yaar, main thing I wanted to spend time on was this. Okay. Now, biomes may, we were talking of climate, so two things that I'll tell you. One is biomes and some of the examples. Biome में what you remember is climate, ठीक है? Biomes में two very different examples we will have a look at. At least one example I've already told you, ठीक है? So यहाँ पे this section of niche gets done. You can change the heading, and right now we're just seeing say examples of biomes. Two very different examples. Okay. Now, one is Thar Desert, and one is Sundarbans. First, tell me which place is where. Thar Desert, where? Rajasthan. And where is Sundarbans? West Bengal. So if you see the map of India, they are very far located. Can you comment on the kind of climate that would be found in the region? Thar Desert, of course, it's a desert. Desert has extremes of temperature. True or false? True. So the desert, of course, will get very hot. It will also get very cold during the night. Okay. Now, high temperatures and low rainfall, sandy terrain. Sundarbans में क्या है? This is a mangrove area, delta region of rivers like Padma, okay, even Ganga can be there, Meghna, Brahmaputra, fine. तो पहली बात है regions दोनों बहुत अलग है, okay, which also means the species will be very different that will be found here. अगर मैं third desert की बात करूं, so of course you will have cacti. Cacti here is nothing but cactus. Camels मिलेंगे, right? Desert fox, black buck. किस किसने नाम सुना है black buck का? क्यों सुना है? Very famous. Okay. What is the other name for black buck जो आपने सुना हो? नहीं, सांबर डियर, चीतल डियर वो सब अलग भी हैं. चिंकारा भी सुना होगा शायद. अभी के लिए, so here some species are mentioned. I'll just tell you one thing about each species. Okay. For example, you have cactus. Okay. When you are writing third desert and slow and steadily, we will also understand what are the adaptations of these species. Only one thing I'll ask you for cactus. How many of you have seen cactus? देखा होगा, फोटो देखी होगी at least. Cactus has big leaves. True or false? Cactus has thorns instead of leaves. True or false? True, right? Why does cactus have thorns and not leaves? To conserve water. अब देखो, अगर leaves होंगी, leaves will also have something known as stomata. Stomata, in simple words, these are some pores here. They will open and close. For example, why would they open? Just to take in some water, and at an appropriate time they will close. So from the leaves, there is two things: evaporation, transpiration. All of this ultimately is regulation of water, right? अब डेजर्ट कंडीशंस में क्या वाटर ज्यादा होता है, कम होता है? बहुत कम होता है, ठीक है? तो if the leaves, first of all, if the leaf is big, stomatas will also be more. You lose more water. To conserve on that, instead of leaf, क्या होगा यहाँ पे? छोटा सा thorn. That's it. To minimize and save on the water. Isn't this a kind of adaptation that you see? Yes or no? So one thing is on cactus, we know, of course, cactus have, even if they have leaves, because different cactus are there, the leaves can be very small, or in some cases they may have thorns instead of leaves. Can we say this? Pehla? Okay. Now you see camels. Anything unique that you know about camels? कोई बहुत special thing? Hump, somebody said. ठीक है? What is a hump? Let's say there's a hump they have. I want to ask you, India में do I have single humped camels or double humped camels? Single, पक्का? The answer is both. देखा नहीं है, right? तो see, even in places like Ladakh, okay, you can also have you can have Bactrian camels. Okay, there are two types of camels. यहाँ पे जहाँ camels लिखा है, अभी just in the margins, right? Single humped and double humped. Again, when I do species with you, I'll also explain this. So अभी भी whatever things I am seeing from the very start, these are small points I'm just filling in your head. Okay? अगली बार देखोगे you will be even more curious to know. Camels के बारे में कुछ किस्से सुने होंगे आपने. Okay? That sometimes they are killed because they can store up to 20 even 30 liters of water in their body. So that is why sometimes they're killed, because if somebody is facing the issue of water scarcity, if they want to get water, even that can be there. So they have this. Desert foxes hai, black bucks hai. Okay. Now we know that because of certain news, they were of course in the news. Black buck ke bare mein, I just want you to read upon. I'll also cover that. First of all, which community worships them? Pehla question. Okay. Second is why they worship them. Third, where are they found? सिर्फ तीन चीजें देखनी है आपको. Okay, इससे काफी ज्यादा डिटेल में we'll do it when I do the comparison of deers, etc., etc. First question is who worships, which community worships them? Why do they worship them? And third, where are they generally found? Three very simple questions on black buck. And many times you will see this in the news. Why? Because Big Boss is also right now in the news. तो फिर से न्यूज में बन जाएंगे ब्लैक बक्स. ओके, ठीक है. सुंदरबंस dense mangrove forests are found. It is famous to the Royal Bengal tiger. ठीक है. There is salt water crocodile. अब देखो crocodile इंडिया में we will find three types of crocodile in India. Okay. So when I'm saying crocodile, you have घड़ियाल, is मगर, for now you can write this. Out of all the three, घड़ियाल is critically endangered and mostly found in the region of Chambal. Okay. And for saltwater crocodile, we can write an area. और भी जगह मिलता है, but even in Bhitarkanika, I can find them. And the most unique thing is, all the three types of crocodile in India are found in only one area, the Kendpara district of Odisha. CR का मतलब यहां पे है critically endangered. Out of these three, there is only one that is critically endangered. In my subsequent classes, we will do the IUCN classification. अगर मैं बोल रहा हूं any species critically endangered, it means it is very less in number. For you, that is the only thing to know. Something is very less in number. ठीक है, घड़ियाल, मगर. This is actually GER. It's not very clear maybe, so I'll just erase it and again write MUGGER. Magar and saltwater crocodile. Okay. This also we'll do in more detail because very recently, 50 years of Project Crocodile has got completed. Project Crocodile was launched in the year 1975. आज क्या है 2025. 50 years have got done. So I'll go into even more detail some of the attributes which is heavy. ठीक है. How many of you have seen a घड़ियाल? Right? What is so special about it? Why is the name घड़ियाल? Hmm? Yes. Okay. So their snout is like a ghada. Okay. It almost, let's say, circles itself. Let's say if I show you this. In fact, I'll just show you via a infographic. Achha, this is a good example. Can you see this? So this makes this shape. ये आपको दिख रहा है? They have a very long snout and it is almost curved. So this creates the impression just like a घड़ा. ये दिख रहा है आपको ये? This image. Right? This is a घड़ियाल. But the other ones, mugger and in fact a saltwater, they are very bulky. This is not that bulky. For that, I'll just show you another image for comparison. Let's say if I write there is also this is one good infographic. जैसे अब ये देखो, just see the snout and how it is varying, right? Don't you this look like is a very heavy one, okay? और ये हम स्टेटस बाद में देखेंगे, अभी के लिए बस याद रखो घड़ियाल is critically endangered, right? You have mugger, etc. So there are some of these very important species that you will understand अभी के लिए. Later on also you can go through. When I do the species, I'll do them in more detail, ठीक है? और भी ऐसी चीजें देखोगे ना, इंडियन घड़ियाल, alligator, crocodile, slowly and steadily. Okay. So again, there is a lot to understand here. Okay, let's come back. We're talking about this mangrove forests, Royal Bengal tiger, crocodile, and fish and other bird species. So my point is, the moment the biome changes, species also change. Yes or no? Yes, even that is true. Okay. So each biome, basically what happens in each biome, unique biodiversity is there, resilience, so on and so forth. This also happens to be a very important point, right? Each biome has unique challenges. That is what we have seen here. So we have also seen the deserts. We have also seen the, let's say, areas of deltas which have proper biodiversity, right? But the range of biodiversity is very different in both the cases. Okay? Again, when we do adaptations now, slowly and steadily, this will also easily help you understand what is the main things to understand and take care of. Okay. Now, we have seen the disruption of niche. We have seen biome, and more importantly, biome में ज़्यादा हमें क्या देखना था? The example related to biome. Two examples we saw. Fine. Now, we will again go into ecosystem. Again, I've told you at least for 3 or 4 classes, the different headings, functions. I'll keep on doing it along with some examples and case studies. Right. Now we go into the services and ecosystem offers. Right. इसके लिए I'll give you a very simple framework that whenever a question is asked, जैसे अगर आपसे random कोई question पूछा जाए, okay, heading है ecosystem services. The points that you will now understand, the points can be helpful. जैसे अगर आपसे पूछा जाए, what functions does a forest have or offer? What functions a coral reef has? Okay, or what functions mangroves? What functions wetlands? कुछ भी ऐसा पूछा जाए आपसे, what do they give you? What they actually provide, right? उसके लिए we have a simple framework of 4 things. Okay, any of the ecosystem will provide 4 services. कोई भी ecosystem हो. Regulating services. अब जैसे अगर मैं आपसे पूछूं, अगर आपको ये फ्रेमवर्क नहीं पता होगा, आप क्या लिखोगे? फॉरेस्ट से क्या मिलता है? Of course, you'll say, sir, wood. We make furniture. Anything else? Medicine. Good point. और सोचो. Fruits, vegetable, or anything else? Points खत्म हो रहे हैं. They are drying up. But the moment you see this framework, you will also get to know. In fact, in Delhi, you have different trees, even like neem. Neem can purify the air. So not only does it help you in giving the products, it also helps you in better purification. So forth. There are 4 services which any ecosystem will provide. 4 services हैं, right? One is regulating services. Like it can regulate air quality, climate, water runoff, erosion, hazards, etc. It can give supporting services. जैसे कि nutrient की recycling में help करेगा. Even if there is a forest, etc., they will have roots. यहाँ से nutrients can flow in. Some other organisms and bacteria, they will also be supported. Yes or no? right? For soil formation, all these things will be getting impacted. ये बोल सकते हैं हम लोग? Yes? Soil formation, very important point, right? Photosynthesis, this will happen. Now, वो जो example आप लोग दे रहे थे, these are provisioning services. Provisioning का simple mean है to provide for something, that is provisioning services. जैसे you will provide food, fiber, biomass, fuel, etc., natural medicines, that is there. So normally when students are asked, they only tell provisioning services, but they often do not remember why there are supporting services also. There are regulating services. And another thing that we often miss is cultural services. जैसे कि normally which are the trees which people worship? People, bargat, the banyan tree, etc. Okay, we just saw the example of a community. चलो मैं आंसर ही देता हूँ उसका. It is the Bishnoi community that worships black buck, and the same Bishnoi community worships khejri trees. Okay, there are also other communities, many tribal groups also who worship trees. Yes or no? So basically any ecosystem will have 4 services. एक होगी और इसको चारों अलग अलग पॉइंट्स हैं हमारे. Regulating services में mini points होंगे. Supporting services will have their own points. Provisioning services will have their points, and cultural services will have their points. All the 4 points are very important for us to write any answer. These kind of questions sometimes in mains can also be asked. What are the important functions, ये services of coral reef? आपको 2 ही 3 points याद आ रहे हैं. But if you remember the framework, at least 16 points, 1/6 you can generate. अब depend करता है कितना space है आपके पास. For each dimension, can we write 4 points? Yes or no? Other thing is, when I say cultural, इसको हम बोलते हैं even aesthetic. Now just tell me, if in a township, in a society, if there is very good greenery, if there are very good forest maintained, okay, air quality अच्छी होगी वहां पे, would people be willing to pay more money for that same real estate? Yes or no? There can also be some tourists coming in. So aesthetic value always plays an important role, right? I can give you another example. Let's say if an area is very close to a Ramsar site, a wetland, if it is well maintained, it will also have aesthetic value, right? तो इसीलिए इससे जुड़ता है एक term eco tourism, right? Recreation. अब एक अच्छा सा लेक है तो people will also do want to have picnic. They will bring their children also. But if that lake has become a nala, कोई लाएगा? No. That is also why. So this is why cultural importance is very important. Same. Coral reef hai. Which part of India does have coral reef? Andaman, somebody said, Lakshadweep said. Don't you think these regions are also famous for scuba diving, for snorkeling? Yes or no? Why? So people post videos of coral reefs. Imagine if there are no reefs, if the water is polluted. कोई जाएगा? नहीं जाएगा. Nobody will go, right? People also go to other Malaysia and other proper islands specifically for aesthetic beauty, for recreation, for ecotourism. Yes or no? So now you have how many points? Huge number of points. There are regulating services. Regulate किसको कर सकते हो? Proper जो change होगा. Air quality, if it is bad, that can also be regulated. Climate can also be regulated. When I'm saying climate, there is also another term that is also known as microclimate. Okay? So the trees, the forests, they also help in controlling microclimate. Micro means more localized. So the areas which have extensive forests, they have a proper microclimate, which is far better than the other regions, for example. That is why it is said, save your forests, save your corals, save your mangroves, save your wetlands, because they serve a very important function. Even right now, when flooding is happening and some of the disasters are happening, people are again saying, especially the coastal areas, Abhi Mumbai made the whole range of floods. So if the mangroves are properly well maintained, even in West Bengal, in other areas, when we are saying of Sundarbans, Sundarban के पास दुनिया के the world's largest mangroves are in Sundarbans. Yet at the same time, maximum destruction in India has happened of Sundarbans mangroves. And despite that, right now you still have the maximum. Right? And these are also very important. यहाँ पे एक dimension नहीं लिखा है, right? I can also add, चलो hazard लिखा है तो चलो वहां से लिख सकते हैं. Regulation में I can add the disaster management point also. They help in minimizing the impact of disasters. देखो, nobody can stop these disasters, but क्या हो सकता है? You can minimize the impact. Lesser damage can happen. तो hazards पे होता है. Do we know what is pollination? What is pollination? Transfer of seeds of pollens. Okay. So for example, who does pollination? It can be animals also, let's say elephants also, but properly, let's say butterflies, bees, for example, they can also do that. Are we clear on these terms? पहले ये बताओ. Right? Now please write a question. बहुत simple सा question है. In your free time, just try to write points alongside. Okay? तो ये क्वेश्चन की स्टेम कैसे भी चेंज कर सकता हूं मैं. जस्ट लिखो व्हाट आर द फंक्शंस, यस लिखो स्लैश एडवांटेजेस. What are the functions slash advantages of, we'll write all the four so that you remember. I can use this content in any of them. Of forests, comma coral reef, forests, comma coral reefs, comma mangroves. You have not done coral reefs with me yet, don't worry, we'll see that. Forests, comma coral reefs slash mangroves या wetlands. Functions and advantages, ठीक है. Second part लिखो, what are the challenges they face. इसमें भी कॉमन पॉइंट्स ही है हमारे पास. What are the challenges they face? What are the challenges they face? ठीक है. What are the challenges they face? Okay. Now, when I'm saying what are the challenges they face, this is something that you can just think. आप सोच सकते हो on the spot. What do you think are the challenges faced by forests? Right? All of them face one very dangerous creature. कौन है वो? Creature बोला मैंने. Creature. Very dangerous. Humans. Okay. So of course, one is humans. Other than that, चलो humans हम लिखेंगे नहीं, but we'll write. For example, we'll write encroachment. और सोचो what are the challenges they face. One is of course encroachment. और क्या है? Temperature है. और सोचो. Yes, you're right. और सोचो. I'm asking you, for example, the question I've asked is, and slowly and steadily, all these points will be on your tips. So my question is in two parts. One is the functions, your importance, let's say. Second is challenges, right? Now, इसके लिए I've already given you a framework. What is the framework you will talk about? Regulating services, supporting services, and understand what are provisioning services. Provisioning की English रखो. To provide for. क्या provide करेंगे? या तो direct, जैसे if I cut down the forest, I get wood, but I can also get non-timber forest products. Okay, जैसे कि leaves, I get dyes from leaves. If I get gum, right? So provisioning or medicine, all of these are provisioning services. And of course, cultural or aesthetic. This you can easily do. But my question was, what are the challenges? So one challenge, for example, can be encroachment. Another challenge overall can be deforestation. और सोचो, other challenges. So ocean will be a more specific point in the water bodies, but even this point I can take. Let's say ocean acidification means ocean का pH. आप बताओ, आप लोग, will the pH of ocean increase or decrease? बताओ. Decrease. You try. I'm saying ocean is becoming more acidic. Will the pH increase or will the pH decrease? हाँ? Decrease. चलो और कोई सोचो. Decrease. सही बात है. Because pH 7 is what? Neutral. 6, 5, 4. This means decrease of pH. Yes. One, of course, thing can be climate change. One thing that you're forgetting, a pollution can be either air, even water, soil, etc. Even this can be there as a challenge. Other thing apart from this, what are the challenges? Or socho. This is pure brainstorming. You'll see so many points in other areas also. What are challenges? अगर यही same चीज बोलूं मैं कुछ, I'll change challenges forest face for example. Loss of diversity, but why is that happening for example? Forest fires भी है पर ठीक है वो specific point हो जाएगा. Why are more forest fires happening? Temperature, right? Temperature बढ़ रहा है, right? And if the temperature is increasing and the conditions are becoming dry, उस वजह से आग लग रही ज्यादा. ठीक है? You also see in case of Spain, you also see in case of US, the wildfires that happened. When I'm writing climate change, I can also link this to global warming. Okay? Any other thing which I can use easily as a point. Like pollution, almost major points we've already done. Here I can also talk about any practice. Okay? For example, I'll talk about increasing urbanization or unplanned urbanization. Okay? I'll talk about more and more mining. So increasing urban problem is not with increasing urbanization, but problem is with unplanned urbanization. With mining, let's say, for example, with more and more land being used for agriculture. Problem क्या होगी? Agriculture has huge emissions. Second, you use so much of fertilizers on soil, वो ground water में जाएंगे. Second, they will also leach to a water body. It impacts both the land and also the water. So the point I have, let's say I'll write it. ये point समझ में आ रहा है आपको? The point we are trying to make is increase the land is being used for, let's say, agriculture activities. Problem with this is with agriculture, there is a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. There will be groundwater contamination. All these problems will happen. And this can also leach to water bodies nearby. तो ऐसे बहुत जो points आप सोचोगे, these points are common. So this would also impact because for this agriculture, number one, what I would do, I will cut down the piece of land. तभी तो agriculture हो पाएगा. Yes or no? Even that is a challenge. So forest will be cut because of this. It will impact the soil. It impacts the air because agriculture leads to greenhouse gas emissions. These will be some common points. Yes or no? So throughout our lectures, we'll also examine some of these points. That what are the challenges and again, how to understand them better. Okay? Till here, are we able to follow the ecosystem services? Okay, so ecotone this we have seen. Okay. Now, चलो ecotone में चलो एक और example देख लेते हैं पर चलो this we have seen but just for your reference. I'll talk about Western Ghats to you many times. Okay. Now, first question when you see Western Ghats, is Ghats is spread across how many states? 4, 5. ठीक. और कोई? 6. 4, 5, 6 है. It's a good arithmetic progression. Next क्या होगा इसके बाद? 7. Only few more states remaining. This is a UPSC PYQ of prelims also. Western Ghats is spread across how many states? यहाँ पे कोई है वेस्टर्न घाट से? Anybody out of any of these 6 states या 5 states or 4 states? ये ऑप्शन एग्जाम में नहीं मिलेगा. फोन अ फ्रेंड, आस्क योर फ्रेंड. हाँ. 5. चलो, who said 4? 5 किसने वाला? 6. 2 लोग. 7. 17. नहीं. चलो, द आंसर इज 6. अब सोचो कैसे. स्टार्ट करो. स्टार्ट विद गुजरात. हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू काउंटेड गुजरात? हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू डिड नॉट काउंट गोवा? गोवा याद रखा? भूल गए होगे है ना. नाउ अब देखो, Gujarat, 1. Second, Maharashtra, third, Goa, Karnataka. Okay, so you have in the heading only just write it. We will see Western Ghats many a times. In fact, for environment, Western Ghats is very important because Western Ghats is a biodiversity hotspot. It is a biodiversity hotspot. So because of that, we'll also remember Western Ghats. Hotspot ka matlab, it has high biodiversity, but at the same time, it is also facing a lot of threat. The threats we just saw before this. यहाँ पे भी क्या है? New projects are coming in, some deforestation is going on, and this region is very fragile in nature. Okay, now we will see this hotspot concept in most probably tomorrow or day after tomorrow. But a couple of things you need to know. Okay, it is UNESCO World Heritage Site. Any WHS that you know from India, any other World Heritage Site? Are there WHS in Delhi? Okay, और सोचो कोई? Anything that stands out? अब इसके लिए what you should do, because this you will also do in culture, right? If there's anything that is added, just see the World Heritage Sites from India. Okay? When you do the World Heritage Sites, there will be two. One are cultural and one are natural. In the next class, I'll ask you all the natural World Heritage Sites in India. I'm not telling you how many are there. I want you to read this. Okay? But there's a bifurcation made between natural and cultural. But there is only one site in India, only one, which has both, and that is known as the mixed heritage site. So you'll have to see where it is, what is the name. Okay? When we do biodiversity, when we do species, etc., then I will expand on these three also. But if you just see it beforehand, अब ये होती है कुछ trivia and कुछ information reading etc. These kind of small activities, the 5-10 minutes you spend after a class just going through Google searching, this will add a lot of value. ठीक है? और इसको कहीं से इसकी या तो अलग से डायरी मेंटेन करो, और if you're maintaining this in the margins, तो जब भी हम क्लासेस करेंगे ना, क्लासेस के बाद इतने पॉइंट्स होंगे ना आपके पास एक्स्ट्रा, आफ्टर द क्लासेस यू विल फील नहीं मुझे मैंने बहुत चीजें कर रखी हैं, देख रखी हैं. ठीक है? तो डू दैट. ओके? It is one of the 8 hottest hotspots of diversity. Don't write it abhi. I will tell you in the subsequent class, but I'm just telling you that Western Ghats is one of the very important biodiversity related things. Okay, it also has various ecotones. Okay, ऐसे for example in Western Ghats, देखो Western Ghats अगर आप देखोगे, अभी you've not done your geography, but when you talk about India's monsoons, okay, substantial amount of rain actually happens in the Western Ghats. Okay, अब देखो there are two sides. Let's say if there's a mountain, let's say that this is a mountain. Okay, यहाँ मान के चलो moisture वाली winds, the moisture laden winds are coming in. In a mountain there are two sides. One, this is let's say known as, which is directly facing the wind. This is known as windward side. Which is not facing, this is known as leeward side. आपके हिसाब से which side will face or get more rainfall? Yes, this side gets more rainfall. So why, एक क्वेश्चन जो आपने देखा भी, I said Western Ghats is very rich in biodiversity. One reason is it gets huge amounts of rainfall. Okay, of course on the windward side. जहां rainfall ज्यादा होगी क्या होगा वहां पे? Biodiversity ज्यादा है. Because water is appropriate. You would have seen, किसी ने देखी movies like Anaconda, okay, Jurassic Park or some of these movies. So you would have seen in especially the tropical areas where there is huge rainfall. जैसे Amazon के बारे में सुना होगा आपने, right? That Amazon has huge biodiversity. Why is that? Very close to equator. Huge amounts of rainfall are there. So very unique kinds of plants, very unique kinds of animals are found in that region. Yes or no? देखा हमने, सुना हमने इसके बारे में? Even that is also true. Right? So windward side facing moisture laden winds gets a lot of rainfall, and that also explains one of the reasons why The Western Ghats, okay? How many states in Western Ghats? 6. अब आपका homework क्या है? How many states in Eastern Ghats? Eastern Ghats भी we will do it few times in our classes. Okay. अच्छा, the people online, I think the worksheets. हाँ, the worksheets of paper, I think, अच्छा, this lecture 1 was there in your channel. पहले वाली. अच्छा, so the people offline can get both, I think, lecture 1 and lecture 2 here. Printout is also there, and I think in the channel also, the worksheets for these two lectures will now also be available. Okay, so you can again, after the class gets done, you can go through this and attempt it. Okay, right? Haan. Functions may, I think the points that I've just mentioned, that is good enough. The 4 major points. Okay, and even the challenges, only the points that we've written, because we will expand on it later. Functions may, if you have seen the 4 heads, kaun se 4 heads the? Regulatory. Okay, the only the diagram में जो भी keywords थे, that for us is good enough to write. Anybody else who has not written it yet? अच्छा, so अच्छा, on 6th September, that is tomorrow, that will be International Vulture Awareness Day. Okay, चलो हमने कुछ, we know something about vultures today now. Okay, 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 ठीक है. So I think अभी के लिए, right? We are following this. Okay, fine. Now we were here. We are seeing this as a significance. If there's anybody who has missed out, you can just go back to the video, because these points do not need a specific dictation. जो हमने जो significance देखा है ना, ecosystem and the services, only the keywords. Provisioning में what are the keywords? Okay. Supporting में what are the keywords? Regulating में what are the keywords? Right? What otherwise I'll do, the question जो आपको हमने दिया है, वो question try करो लिखने का. Okay. And then when I do forest with you, I'll go into more detail. Yeah, coral reefs, I'll go into more detail. This is a framework right now. Okay. If in the framework, if you only know the keywords, that is good enough. Okay. These will be specific sections as I move along. Okay. If there's any doubt yet, people online can still drop a text अगर ऐसा कोई issue है. तो कल है वल्चर अवेयरनेस डे, याद रखेंगे वल्चर्स को फिर अच्छे से कल नहीं तो मैं क्लास का स्टार्टिंग का 5 मिनट डेडिकेट करूंगा. I'll tell you some more updates on vultures and vulture management in India. Okay. So ecotone significance is one. Now, despite its richness, Western Ghats face threats from, haven't we seen these terms? Deforestation, yes. Mining, ये भी problem है. Illegal poaching, what is poaching? Hunting or killing of animals. Illegal hunting. And earlier, during independence, even before that, you saw the kings, the royal families had the habit कि चलो Sunday है आज, let's go and hunt. Bring some of these, horns, put them as trophies, and this is how we spend time. Okay, what was the problem in doing that? Extinction हो जाएगा. हाँ, good point. So the cheetahs earlier were found in India. Okay, and we are talking of Asiatic cheetah. So this Asiatic cheetah got extinct from India around 1952. Okay, because of too much of hunting. Okay, in fact इसके साथ भी trivia है. When I do cheetah with you, one of the last kings was actually hunting. That was one of the last cheetahs remaining in 1952. उसके बाद से cheetah नहीं मिले. Okay, because they got hunted down. Okay, which is now, अब आप सुन रहे हो, we are getting cheetahs from Africa, from South Africa, from Namibia, right? We are bringing cheetahs. Okay, so which is why there's a need of conservation efforts. So we have seen this. Abhi tak, just try to recall. I have told you some locations around India. Okay, the very first location I started with is Assam. I told you Kaziranga. Yes. Second, just tell me the locations that you have just understood with me. Which locations? Sundarbans. So Kaziranga we just saw Assam. Second is Sundarbans. Which part? West Bengal. We've seen Thar Desert. Which part? Right. Then one example. Western Ghats spread across different states. So almost a huge chunk of diversity. Imagine one is a desert, one is there in this entire coast, one is there in the eastern part, which is the West Bengal. So slowly and steadily, different parts of India we'll cover in a smart manner. Okay, so that is one. Now, Quickly tell me the ecological hierarchy. एक बार फिर से recap करते हैं. What is the ecological hierarchy? Individual, population, community, ecosystem, biome, biosphere. ठीक है? After a point of time, this will get ingrained. You will easily remember it. Right. Now, second thing I want to know from you, how many of you know this term? ये नाम term सुना किसने है? Species, everybody hears about it. ठीक है? Environment का one of the pain points sometimes becomes species. Why? Because there's so many. And how many to remember? Normal नाम तो लोग के याद नहीं होते. अब species में भी tough names. Baptides, Kalami. Okay? And some random. अभी इस साल in 2025 there was only one question of species, and that question was, this is the name, peacock tarantula. इसमें एक नाम तो सुना होगा आपने, कौन सा? Peacock. But the funny thing is, this is actually the name of a spider. Tarantulas are spiders. Okay. So one of the question here was, I think, related to this only, where are they found, etc. This is actually the name of a spider. So many times you'll find some random names, etc. in this case. Now, when we do species, of course, we do species in a proper biodiversity segment. Right now, from the basics of environment, I will tell you names of certain species. जैसे आपने सुना होगा keystone species. Okay, some are foundational species. Okay, some in that sense can be some species with, let's say, some specific associations. If you add them, if you remove them, invasive species, etc., etc. So in the next 20-25 minutes, some important terms related to species I will tell you. Fine. Till now we've only seen one term, that is, what are edge species? Hmm? Yes, found in ecotones, and of course in ecotones you have high biodiversity or low biodiversity. High biodiversity, right? That is there. Now, just write this heading, and this, please note, this is only in the basics. Species abhi still I have not done with you. This is only, I'm creating a base for our understanding. So the heading for us is the types of species. I'll tell you around 7 to 8 types of species with proper names, okay, with examples, right? And then we'll continue later on tomorrow with ecosystem. And then when I start biodiversity, तब मैं आपको specific lion, cheetah, tiger, all this important points which are there in the news, etc. that I'll do. But ये भी बहुत important है समझने के लिए, right? So here there are many terms that I'll tell you one by one. Okay. So types of species is your heading, and in that you will keep on writing. So leave one page. This page will be there to summarize all the headings. After that page, अब एक एक करके लिखोगे. पहली heading है keystone species. In this page, what you will do, after we are done with all the headings, you will just write it in an index form that you've done keystone species, let's say. ठीक है? Endemic species, invasive species, वो बाद में headings बना लोगे आप. So leave half a page for the headings. The very first heading is this: keystone species. Okay. Now, keystone species में you have some examples. I'll give you a very prominent example. Okay. Now, name क्या है? Keystone. So please remember, these are actually very important species. Keystone, right? Key or central to an area, right? So these are, of course, these are important species. They play important functions. How do you know why they're very important? If you remove these species, this has a disproportionate impact on the ecosystem. Disproportionate impact on the ecosystem. Now, one very famous example that goes along with the keystone species is the area of Yellowstone National Park. Okay, and it is related to the wolves of Yellowstone National Park. एक बार ये example आप समझ जाओगे, then other three examples will easily make sense. Okay, now Yellowstone National Park, I think this was around 1920s or so. Slowly and steadily, the population of wolves start to decline. ठीक, इन वेरी सिंपल टर्म्स आप सोचो, चलो अभी वुल्व्स भूल जाओ, पहले आते हैं इस पे भी, टाइगर पे. If the population of tigers in an area, if it starts to decline, what will happen? सोचो, right? So normally speaking, in an area, for example, if I have grass is eaten up by, let's say, deer. Deer is eaten up by lion or a tiger. If the population of tiger reduces, won't the population of deer will increase, right? If the population of deer will increase, what will happen to grass? They will eat up all the grass slowly and steadily. If they eat up the grass, the entire chain, will that get damaged? Grass bachegi nahi? Yes or no? So what happens, and this example also tells you, the moment you remove, and that is why don't have these moral or ethical emotion. Are sir, lion is so bad, it is killing the deer, etc. That is their role. They are, let's say, their nature has its own way. Sometimes we may get the sentiment, sir, ये तो बहुत खराब हो रहा है ना, ये तो खा रहा है. They're eating them. The point is that that is their role. If they don't play their role, the ecosystem will not have the harmony. So here, what is happening here? The moment there is a disruption in the population of tiger here is the apex predator, right? The whole ecosystem gets damaged. So हुआ क्या Yellowstone National Park में? Same thing I'll tell you. The moment the population of wolves declined, the population of deer, other species started to increase. They almost ate up the entire grass. Okay, and because of that, the other supporting organisms also got lost. So slowly and steadily, almost the entire biodiversity in the Yellowstone National Park got wiped off. Right? Initially, you used to have a lot of tourists. अब टूरिस्ट भी नहीं बचे, अब कौन देखने आएगा, जब कुछ बचा ही नहीं यहाँ पे, राइट? यू डोंट हैव द प्रॉपर स्पीशीज अवेलेबल. दिस वाज अ प्रॉब्लम, राइट? तो the different conservationists, they thought kya kara jaye, what is to be done, how this is to be improved, etc. So they thought of an idea, right? They thought, let's reintroduce the wolves into the area. Okay, and the moment they reintroduced the wolves, slowly and steadily, they started to keep a check on the population of deer, right? The grasses now could grow in a proper time that was already there, right? The replenished grasses get a time to replenish and also grow. Other species that were there. So अब देखो, अगर आप जैसे grasses अगर चली जाएंगी, if there is no grass, छोटे छोटे माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिज्म भी होंगे, other small, right? Insects, they also got lost. But the moment grass started to reappear, other insects, microorganisms, microbes, they also started to come. So over a span of only few years, the entire thing got restored in Yellowstone National Park. This is again a very famous example telling that if you tamper with the population of keystone species, it can have a disproportionate impact. But at the same time, if you bring them back, if you restore the balance, things will get better. और इसी से जुड़ता एक और term है, the things that you saw, that if you remove the wolves, it led to disproportionate impact. This term in ecology is known as trophic cascade. Trophic cascade. Okay? आपने सुना होगा cascading effect. Cascading is if I remove one thing, it is just like a domino effect. एक चीज हटाई, इसको आपने YouTube पे वीडियोस भी देखे होंगे. There are pack of cards. If you just remove one pack, entire thing, entire sequence gets changed. So here also, this was how you get to know wolves was so important in the area, and the reintroduction of wolves helped in create a huge balance in the ecosystem. Is this clear? Now I can just swap wolves with lion and tiger. If you remove lion or tiger from an ecosystem, it will also have disproportionate impacts, because deer's population या herbivores वो increase होंगे. Herbivores will eat up on the grass. You know what are herbivores and carnivores? Carnivores are eating meat. Herbivores are eating grass. Okay? ये एग्जाम्पल हुआ. सेम एग्जाम्पल होता है आपका ओशन इकोसिस्टम में विद सी ऑटर. इफ यू सी दिस इमेज, ये है सी ऑटर. आप दिमाग में सोचो, सी ऑटर इज जस्ट लाइक अ लायन. सी ऑटर ईट्स ऑन सी अर्चिन. अर्चिन हो सकता है आपके लिए, हो सकता है डियर. सी अर्चिन किसको खाता है? केल्प को. केल्प ये दिख रहा है आपको? दीज आर अंडरग्राउंड फॉरेस्ट्स. केल्प्स आर द डेंस algae एक साथ, right? And these are also known as underwater forests. kelps को खाता कौन है? Sea urchin. Who eats sea urchin? Sea otter. If I remove sea otter, what will happen? And please remember, these are underground forests or plants. Wouldn't they also be very important for ocean life and ocean productivity? Yes or no? तो ocean की life चलती है इनसे. आप इनको, if we eat all of them, there will be nothing in the ocean to create food. Yes or no? So same thing, sea otter eats up sea urchin eats scalp. If I remove sea otter, problem क्या होगी? The population of sea urchin, this will increase. Yes or no? They will eat up the kelps. Kelps बचेंगे नहीं. And destruction of kelps is always a huge challenge. Somebody can even ask you what is a kelp. Kelp is nothing but underground. The plants, basically the dense algae, all of that combined is your kelp. थोड़ा सा idea लग रहा है? Right? So keystone species में, again, these are the species, if you remove them from the ecosystem, this will have a disproportionate impact. This can lead to destabilization of the entire ecosystem. That is the point we get to understand here. Yes or no? Okay, so this can cause destability. Okay, this can lead to more ecosystem damages. That is the one major thing for you to understand. And we also want to prevent the ecosystem damage. That is the main core concern for us. Ecosystem damage को कैसे रोकें? Okay. So we have these keystone species, right? So for example, these are animals or plants, both, it can be both, that play a unique role, right? Without these species, the ecosystem will be dramatically different or cease to exist. Why? It leads to a disproportionate impact. Okay, so you can quickly write this one definition down in case somebody has not written it yet. इसके record, then the point that I've just explained to you, I'll also make you write with examples. You'll get to know what are these keystone species. So I'll move this side. Trophic cascade, I'll just define this for you, but trophic cascade simply means the moment you remove an important species, it leads to the distortion of the entire ecosystem. That is a trophic cascade, right? इसको हम अलग से लिखेंगे, don't worry. I've just told you a term. Proper definition, I'll just tell you. I think in just 5 minutes or so, you'll be writing this. What is a trophic cascade, etc. Okay? Now please write for keystone species. Right? These species, whatever new points you've written, that is fine, but we'll write specific points also now. Right? These species have a disproportionately large effect. These species have a disproportionately large effect on their ecosystem relative to their abundance. On their ecosystem relative to their abundance. Ecosystem relative to their abundance. Right? Example, wolves in Yellowstone National Park. Wolves in Yellowstone National Park. Second, tiger lion in grassland. Tiger या lion in grassland. Third, sea otter in kelp forests. Kelp, K-E-L-P, sea otter in kelp forests. Next, elephants. Elephants in African savanna. Savanna, etc. We'll see when we do biomes later on. SAVANNAH. In African savanna. Put a star mark on savanna. ठीक है, नहीं तो biomes भी लिख लो, नहीं तो in the margins later on just write 1 or 2 lines on what is savanna. Okay, as a homework, but we will do this later on also. Next example, coral reefs. Coral reefs. Next example, fig trees in tropical forests. Fig, F-I-G, fig trees in tropical forests. Okay, okay. Now you can write when wolves. So we're directly going to Yellowstone wala example, right? When wolves were absent from Yellowstone National Park. When the wolves were absent from Yellowstone National Park, US. Elk, ELK, elk is also type of deer. Elk, comma, deer population grew. Elk, ELK, comma, deer population grew, leading to overgrazing. Leading to overgrazing and habitat destruction. Right? Next, the reintroduction of wolves. The reintroduction of wolves restored the ecological balance which benefited a range of species. Which benefited a range of species. Okay. Now change the paragraph, write the heading trophic cascade. ये लिखेंगे trophic, TROPHIC, cascade. This is a very important concept. This has not been asked by UPSC yet, but you can all be asked what is a trophic cascade? Yeah, which of the following best defines what is a trophic cascade? Okay. So here, right, it shows the interconnectedness. It shows the interconnectedness of a species in an ecosystem. It shows the interconnectedness of a species in a ecosystem. Right? फिर लिखो, it is a series of powerful indirect interactions. Series of powerful indirect interactions which control entire ecosystems. Which control the entire ecosystems. Full stop. लिखो, it is triggered by addition or removal of top predators. Addition or removal of top predators in an ecosystem which can result in dramatic changes. Which can result in dramatic changes. तो इसमें अंडरलाइन द कीवर्ड्स. फर्स्ट इज इंटरकनेक्टेडनेस. आपने अगर एक प्रेडेटर, इफ यू रिमूव एनी वन प्रेडेटर, everything will get impacted, right? One is interconnectedness, second is, ठीक है, series of, इसको it's a proper series हो गई, right? Then triggered by either addition or removal, दोनों तरह से ट्रिगर होगा. आपने ऐड किया तो बैलेंस बेटर हो जाएगा, या आपने रिमूव किया एवरीथिंग विल गेट डिस्टॉर्टेड. इट इज अ कैस्केड, राइट? तो व्हेन यू रिमूव देम, ecosystem got balance, पूरी तरह से disrupted. But when you added them, when you brought them back, it led to proper ecological restoration. Yes or no? ठीक. This is the broad definition. I can also include one more point and then write. इसी में this we can also write as, लिख सकते हो कि by simply reintroducing wolves, by simply reintroducing wolves, Yellowstone saw increased, अभी 4 points लिखेंगे, mini points within this. By simply reintroducing wolves, Yellowstone saw, point number 1, increased vegetation. Increased vegetation. Second, stabilized rivers. Stabilized rivers. Next, boost in biodiversity. Boost in biodiversity. And next is better ecosystem health. Better ecosystem health. Better ecosystem health. ठीक है? So that is one. Now, so we have seen one example of Yellowstone. The lion tiger is also almost a similar example. Write it also for, अच्छा, you missed something, बताना. Second point of, अच्छा, second is stabilized rivers. So everything gets impacted. So not only have we seen vegetation, we've seen rivers, we've seen biodiversity, and we've seen ecosystem health. Now, एक बार इसको भी लिख लो, sea otter को. Next, sea otters में you can write they prey on, and here prey is what? P-R-A-Y या P-R-E-Y? E-Y. Because the sea urchin is actually going to prey, P-R-A-Y. Okay, so write sea otter preys on, P-R-E-Y, preys on sea urchin, which grazes on kelp forests. Which grazes on kelp forests. kelp आपने जहां लिखा है तो लिखो उसको ब्रैकेट करके या डैश करके. These are these are macro alga. Alga means algae. Kelp are your macro alga, your macro algae, which provide habitat and food for marine life. Food for marine life. Okay. We have also given the example of elephants. You just write, जहां पे हमने elephants लिखा है वहां पे just लिखो elephants के लिए ecosystem engineers. Some species are also known as ecosystem engineers. Now I want to ask you, you would have seen the movements of elephants. Why is an elephant ecosystem engineer? From which college have they done BTech? बताओ. Why are they called as ecosystem engineers? और इस तरह के क्वेश्चन, इमेजिनेटिव क्वेश्चंस, क्वेश्चंस लाइक व्हाई आर द वेटलैंड्स नोन एज द किडनीज, ऐसे सवाल पूछेगा यहाँ आपसे. I just want to ask you on the spot. Why would elephants be ecosystem engineers? What is the role of engineer? Don't talk about the conventional definition that we have seen, but ultimately engineers can play with the buildings, they can create something. When I say create something, what can elephant help in creating? कैसे सोचो, कैसे, how? Pollination, ठीक है, और कुछ? They also oftentimes trample and move on the soil. They can help in stabilization, sometimes even in that. Other than that, through their movements, through the dung, etc. Many things can actually help in creation of an ecosystem. Okay. So if you want to write, maybe in the margins, you can just write here. They act as ecosystem engineers by uprooting trees, dispersing seeds, okay, so of course they also help in dispersing seeds हो गया, uprooting हो गया, then trampling on the soil, that can also help. ठीक है. Okay. Now we've also given the example of coral reefs. I will do coral reefs with you in more detail in the aquatic ecosystems. But for now, please remember, coral reef जहां भी आप लिख रहे हो, bracket में लिखना 25%. It means coral reefs support 25% of marine biodiversity. That's a big contribution. Just write 25%, which means they support 1/4 of marine biodiversity. Coral reefs. अभी भी थोड़ी देर के बाद हम आगे देखेंगे symbiotic होते हैं, etc. Right? Interactions. We'll also see more of that. Fine. Now, fig tree लिखा है हमने एक example, तो उसके लिए भी एक line लिख लेंगे fig tree के लिए, right? Fig tree produces fruit. Fig, you know what is fig in Hindi? If somebody knows that. अंजीर सुना है, etc. लिखो fig tree produces fruit all the year, all throughout the year. Produces fruit all throughout the year, which is crucial food source for many animals. It is a crucial food source for many animals. Okay. Right? Without fig trees, there would be shortage. There would be shortage during there will be shortage during harsh weather conditions. Shortage during harsh weather conditions. ठीक है? That is with keystone species. Second species that we will write. So one is we've done is keystone. Many examples we saw. Second is endemic. अब इसके भी काफी examples हम देखेंगे as we move along. But right now I'll just give you one or two examples so that you know what is the term. This term will come again and again. Species that are endemic. Okay. Endemic का concept होता है geographical. Let's say some species are only found in and around that area. That is the meaning of some species are endemic to that area. Okay. Now, based on whatever knowledge you have, do you know some species that are found in only in that area? Any example that you can give me? Chalo, kangaroo, chalo, fair point. Let's say they're only in Australia, but that is also not correct. Some kangaroos can also be in some other areas. Chalo, और कुछ? Penguin, चलो ठीक है, और कुछ? In India, tell me. अच्छा, देखो, endemic में we are saying geography, right? How many of you have heard about this name? Asiatic lion are only found in Kyrgyzstan. True or false? बताओ? Why? Because they are also found in Kazakhstan. नहीं. Where are Asiatic lions found? What is the only abode of Asiatic lions? देखेंगे अभी इसको. Gir in Gujarat. So please forget Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, etc. These are only found in the Gir National Park. Of course, some of them are also being translocated to nearby regions. But इनका जो abode है, where they live, is this. Okay. Now there are some species जिनके नाम से आप पता चल जाओगे ये होंगे कहां पे. जैसे you have Nilgiri tar and you have lion-tailed macaque. You have heard this name, Nilgiri? Giri is mountains, Nil is blue, blue mountains. Nilgiri mountains are found in where? Right. So again in the confluence you have the regions of Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and naam kya hai? Nilgiri tar. Has anybody seen a tar? TAHR? By the way, this happens to be the state animal of Tamil Nadu. Nilgiri tar. And I'm telling you one thing. This you have to Google and look into. It is a ungulate. A Nilgiri tar is a ungulate. Okay, we will see what this exactly means, but you can look into this. It is related to hooves, etc. So point is, अभी I'm talking of endemism. Endemism is a species that is found only in that area. ठीक है, ये सारी चीजें फिर से repeat होंगी when I do the species that are in news, etc., etc. Right now, I'm just telling you the species that are found in a specific area, right? So one of them is Nilgiri tar, right? One is, for example, lion-tailed macaw. Now, lion-tailed macaw also is found in the regions of Western Ghats, right? More specifically, again in the region of Nilgiris. Okay, so you can write one line of definition for endemic species, and slowly, steadily, we will see many examples. बहुत ऐसे examples हैं इंडिया में, around 10-15 examples we will see. But concept क्या है हमारा endemic species में? You can write it. The species that are native to, the species that are native to and found only in a specific geographical location. The species that are native to and found only in a specific geographical location. That is your endemic species. Okay. कुछ एग्जाम्पल लिख लो इसके. पहले देखो इंटरनेशनल एग्जाम्पल्स. एंडेमिक में सम इंटरनेशनल एग्जाम्पल्स आई विल गिव यू. राइट, जायंट पैंडा इन चाइना. Giant panda in China, and for each of them you should look into how they look like. Lemurs, Lemurs, lemurs in Madagascar. Lemurs in Madagascar. And third, for example, kangaroos in Australia. Kangaroos are under this category of marsupials. You can write marsupials in the margins. In the very first lecture also I told you this term, marsupials. These have pouched young ones in the pouch. Okay. Indian examples, for now I'm only telling you 3. We will keep on adding to this. One example, of course, is Asiatic lion in Gir, Gujarat. You have lion-tailed macaque in Western Ghats. And in Nilgiri tar you have, or Nilgiri tar hai kahan pe? Nilgiri mein. Now for Nilgiri tar, I'll tell you 2 specific locations also. Nilgiri tar is found in 2 major locations. Eraviculam National Park is in Kerala, and second is Mukurti National Park in Tamil Nadu. Okay, these two are the locations where predominantly you will find नीलगिरी तार. ठीक है. इराविकुलम नेशनल पार्क अब आपको याद ऐसे हो जाएगा कि इराविकुलम नेशनल पार्क इज फेमस फॉर नील कुरुंजी. And Neel Kurunji are these flowers which bloom once in 12 years. You would have seen very good images of the flowers. आपने नाम सुना इनका? नील कुरुंजी. Otherwise I'll just show it to you if you write it. तो इराविकुलम नेशनल पार्क में दो चीजें याद हो जाएंगी हमें. One, you have the Nilgiri tar, and second, this place is also famous for Neel Kurunji. Okay, these flowers bloom once in 12 years. उनको देखने के लिए again a lot of people go and visit. You have to find that. Abhi I have not taught you yet. I'll also tell you this. I'll also tell you other types of Kurunji also. So that particular tribe is actually looking into the age of this. But this is just a passing reference. We'll also do Neel Kurunji in more detail. Abhi ke liye I've just told you this. ठीक है? Neel Kurunji again, if you want to see this, how this looks. इसको भी एक बार देखते हैं. Just a second. If somebody wants to read more, इडुक्की और बहुत जगह पे ऐसे बहुत आपको ऐसे images दिखेंगी. They bloom once in 12 years, right? 12 long years. Now, what is Neel Kurunji? There are also different types of Kurunji, and also you can also look into the tribe associated with them. But I'll also do this slightly later also. Dekho, I want to ask you, if they bloom once in every 12 years, let's say the article says, let's say they bloomed in 2018. क्या अगली बार हम इनको 2030 में देख पाएंगे? Yes. Why do tourists visit it every year? For the next 11 years, they will be fooled then. Bloomy हो रहा है once in 12 years, then सोचो. It's a very good tourist place. Every year people want to visit it. But यहाँ तो लिखा है it is only glowing in once in every 12 years. What is the issue then? For example, if I say that you go to Norway, you will see the northern lights. और आप वहाँ जाओ, फिर आपको पता चले नहीं, अब तो अगले 12 साल बाद आएगी. You will feel cheated. So what happens here then? So basically, your answer was correct. So what happens? Let's say it's a huge area, right? This is patch 1, patch 2, patch 3, 4. Many, well, thousands of patches will be there, right? Many patches. Of course, let's say this one is blooming in 12 years. So sequentially arranged hoga. Let's say this blooms in 2018, 2019, 2020, etc. So they are blooming in 12 years. That is fine. But they can also be systematically managed that they bloom throughout the year, every year. Right? So based on, if I know, let's say this patch was started, this was year 0. 1 year later, this was there. 1 year later, this was there. So sequentially in every 12 years, can I always see them blooming? Yes or no? So different patches can be then managed. This is nothing but silviculture. Silviculture is the art and science of management of trees, forests. Silviculture. Right? So that the tourists also get to see. Otherwise, if it was only blooming once in 12 years, people would have only come once in 12 years. But we want consistent people, we want aesthetics to be there. So आप बहुत अच्छे से इसको manage कर सकते हो. This is again a part of silviculture and forest management. Okay? So that is one thing to keep in mind here. So endemic में, we have seen 6 examples. 3 international, 3 national. What are the 3 international examples? Giant panda, China. Second, lemurs, Madagascar. Third, kangaroo, Australia. Then come to Indian ones. Number 1, Asiatic lion, found in Gir, Gujarat. Okay, next. Nilgiri tar, okay, Eraviculum and Mukurti. Mukurti is in Tamil Nadu. Eraviculum say, next thing we also remember is Neel Kurunji, the special flowers that bloom once in 12 years. Fine. Now, This is endemic species, right? So the ones which are going to be found. एक और example लिखो, one very famous example will also write. If I'm talking of deers, okay, there are two examples I want to give you. One is hangul, okay. Hangul में you can write is bracket में Kashmir stag. First is this is critically endangered, and this is mostly maximum population of this is found in Dachigam DAS, the Dachigam National Park. Second is Sangai deer. Sangai deer is very famous. It is found only in Manipur, okay, and it is also known as a dancing deer. Okay, while the name is dancing deer, it actually does not dance, right? So ऐसा नहीं है कि it is doing any Kathak or Bharatnatyam, any of that. The name is dancing deer because there is a illusion or there is an appearance in Manipur. You also have floating vegetation on lakes. तो यहाँ पे there is a Cable Lamjau National Park. There is a Loktak Lake. Okay, two locations you have to remember. देखो कश्मीर डियर है. अब देखो there is Loktak Lake in Manipur. Let's say this is a lake. This lake has some floating vegetation. The deer has to hop from here to here to here to here and then move. This gives the impression this is a dancing deer. This also, of course, is the state animal of Manipur, and it is only found in this region. So one is Sangai deer found in Loktak Lake, and very close by you have Cable Lamjau National Park. Okay, this also has been asked in a PYQ, and these are also very prominent deers. So one is of course Hangul. We also saw today black buck. Which community worships them? The Bishnoi community. Fine. You have Dachigam National Park, Kashmir stag. It is critically endangered. This one is not critically endangered. Okay. Kangai deer is found in Manipur. Only in Manipur. It's dancing deer. There's a floating vegetation in the Loktak Lake. Okay. And of course, very close to Cable Lamjau National Park. Okay. So again, you'll remember this as a endemic species. Okay. These are the endemic species, for example. Okay. This is one. Now, just a couple of small headings for other species. So we have seen two species till now. Okay. Now, okay. Now you have foundation species. Foundation species are the ones who do foundation classes. Hey, what are foundation species? So which ultimately affect almost the foundation of any unit, any area, right? So this will be very core, very critical to that area, right? Which means, for example, in a very simple terms, if I say plants are going to be foundation species because they help in photosynthesis, yes or no? Right? So foundation के लिए simple say you can write the species that create or define a habitat species that create or define a habitat and support other species and create or define a habitat and support other species by providing structure and stability by providing structure and stability to the ecosystem by providing structure and stability to the ecosystem. Right here you can write examples for foundation species. So one obvious example is coral forests, sorry, coral keh raha hu, kelp forests, right? Second, coral reefs. जहां में हमने coral reefs लिखा है, so you'll write corals in coral reefs. This example again you'll understand most probably in the next class tomorrow. Because coral reef is made of two things. One is the coral and one is the reef. Isme corals are very important. The foundation they provide. Third example you can write mangroves. Mangroves in coastal areas. Mangroves in coastal areas. Okay? These are the foundation species. Now, this is the one of the easiest ones to remember, flagship species. How many of you know the idea of a flagship phone? There's Samsung का सबसे popular phone क्या होगा उसका? Flagship phone, right? Apple will also have the most popular phone. Here the idea is flagship species में some species can be very popular. They can be created a mascot, or you will use them as in big billboards. These species are popular. They get a lot of footage. जैसे आपने बहुत बार देखा होगा certain birds, okay, certain pandas. जैसे for example WWF, World Wildlife Fund for Nature. It uses panda as its symbol. So the idea of flagship species is the species which actually help in creating more awareness. Right? So here please write species that are chosen to represent an environmental cause due to their charismatic appeal due to their charismatic appeal or cultural significance. Charismatic appeal or cultural significance. Example, you can write panda. Panda, bracket में symbol of WWF. This is the different WWF. Symbol of WWF. Next, Bengal tiger. Tiger you've seen very many times. Very famously used. Bengal tiger. You can write African elephant. African elephant. Okay. Then you have umbrella species. अब देखो concept क्या है? Let's say this is an umbrella, right? Concept of umbrella species is used in conservation, right? So if I want to save a lion, chalo, of course this is by no means a lion, but मान लेते हैं lion लग रहा है आपको. If I want to save this lion, I don't have to save just the lion. I have to also save the deer. I also have to save the grass. So this creates a huge umbrella of all that has to be saved. So in that sense, saving lion indirectly means I need to save the other species. Similarly, if I want to save the elephants, I need to save the whole region for this. So in that sense, umbrella is that conservation concept. We create those big umbrellas. So kabhi bhi if I want to save lions, I just won't save lions. Even right now, when the African cheetahs have come to India, in Kuno National Park of Madhya Pradesh, so there they would have to eat, yes or no? So आपके पास you should have sufficient prey base, yes or no? Which means those prey should also have something to eat. So you should have considerable amount of एक तो space and considerable amount of resources available, right? So for umbrella species, very simple, you can just write the species whose conservation, umbrella species may we write the species whose conservation indirectly protects, whose conservation indirectly protects many other species, due to their large habitat needs, due to their large habitat needs. Okay, you can give right example: tiger, elephant, bear. Okay, so other two you can just write. This I'll explain to you in the next class. You have pioneer species, also invasive, some of these terms. Till now we've seen 5 types of species. Okay, one is keystone, one was endemic, foundation, flagship, umbrella species, right? Now also for the people watching online, you have been shared your worksheets. It can happen that maybe a couple of questions, maybe we've not done it entirely. Still you can go through the question in next class. Even those topics would get done, but again these questions, 7 to 8 questions based on each lecture are there. Go through the explanation also. If you have any doubt, tomorrow when we meet, we'll also discuss that. Okay? So एक बार you can go through these questions also. People online can download it from the respective channels. Okay? If there is any doubt, you can drop a text. Otherwise, we'll end it for today. Abhi, I'll do even more. So these two are there, and we will also add one more abhi later on. Okay? Because I'll not be able to do it right now, so I did not tell. Actually, it is not also 8. Based on some classifications, I can even include more, but there will be some 8 prominent types that I said. Okay? So tomorrow when I do it, I may also add a couple of more to this list also. Okay? Okay then. See, the worksheets are there in your channel. Just see once, because channel पे आएगी, right? All right. So I hope that answers your query. No, Chaitra, the initial only classes are there on YouTube. Otherwise, this is again a part of the KAVACH program. Okay, let me just complete some of the initial classes, then the PPT and other doubts I'll let's say take up. Right now, on the basics front, let's focus only on the basics. The infographics, etc., the things which I'm giving you as a supporting document. Okay, so we'll discuss also about that. Okay. Yes, yes. So there will be similar subspecies. So there will be ऐसा नहीं है कि जो species वहां पे वो अलग नहीं हो सकती है. In fact, as I tell you, pioneer species, invasive and other species, you will see an intersection. This is also very thing. So the concept is very fluid. A same species, in fact, can also be an umbrella species, which can also be a keystone species. Okay, so that doubt also again, I'll discuss now in the next class in more detail. Okay. Thank you so much.